Good evening, everyone. Just going to give it 1 second to make sure we're on camera in the back. Okay, we're good. All right. So this evening, I'm going to call to order our work session for May 7th. And in order to get us rolling, would you mind doing a roll call?
Of course. Councilmember Sokolowski.
Present.
Councilmember Cerna.
Here.
Councilmember Barton.
Here.
Councilmember Elam.
Here.
Councilmember Fry.
Here.
Vice President Kingsley. Here. President Sokolowski.
Here.
Mayor Aronson.
Here.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining this evening. We have a full house, so it's very exciting. We have a few proclamations that we're giving out, so that sounds good. Full agenda, a few presentations, a few votes. Brittany, did we receive any public comments related to the April 16th public meeting or tonight's meeting?
We did not.
Thank you. Council, do you have any feedback from any of your constituents that you want to share this evening?
None.
Okay. All right, then we'll roll right into our presentations. So Mayor Aronson, do you want to come up to the podium? This evening we have Proclamation 2025-04, which recognizes the 100th anniversary of St. Paul's Baptist Church. So Mayor Aronson, I will have you read the proclamation. We'll take lots of pictures. This is an exciting time. Absolutely. And 100 years, wow.
And between this proclamation and our Black History Month proclamation in February, I've had an opportunity to really delve into the history of our African American community. So I'm so grateful that Council has supported being able to make these stories public, which will continue tonight. So let's get to it. All right. Whereas African Americans in the 1920s continued the Great Migration to northern cities after the Civil War and Reconstruction, including to Conshohocken Borough, to escape oppressive conditions in the South and harsh segregation laws. And whereas Allenwood Steel employed more than 5,000 Conshohocken residents in 1925, including African Americans recruited from South Carolina to fill critically needed industry jobs. And whereas Reverend Marshall W. Lee accepted the pastorate of St. Paul's Mission on April 29, 1925, later that year, 8 churches met to approve the propriety of recognizing St. Paul's Baptist Church as a regular independent Church of Christ on July 7, 1925. And whereas in 1927, the church's building committee agreed to construct a dedicated church building situated at 3rd Avenue and Hollowell Street, where it still stands today. And whereas over the next 100 years, the church has made it its mission to be a light for the Conshohocken community, as witnessed through Sunday morning worship service, sponsoring picnics at Sutcliffe Park and the Beefield, collaborating with St. John's AME and providing Good Friday services, and by participating in Conshohocken Fun Fest. And whereas developing partnerships with Bryn Mawr Hospital, Conshohocken's first responders, and engaging youth in its Youth Day programs, St. Paul's brings important education and resources to the borough. And whereas the presence of the brave souls of the founders and congregants of St. Paul's Baptist Church and their descendants have had an invaluable impact on the cultural, economic, and political development of the Conshohocken community, the borough, and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. They have helped to change the face of the borough, county, and the state in the professions of medicine, law, education, nursing, sports, architecture, finance, higher education, the armed forces, small business, community activism, local government, music, religion, and the arts. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Borough of Conshohocken recognizes and celebrates the 100th anniversary of St. Paul's Baptist Church, a valued member of our faith community and longtime community partner and member.
Sure.
Chairman's at the deacon. Sure. Up here?
Front center.
Front center.
This is the best part. Smile.
Just have everyone move up like one step. Just, there you go, perfect. You can come up. Okay. You want to take pictures? So you can come up here.
Come on, thank you. Thank you. Let me see my cup.
Might have to squeeze in a little bit.
All right, everyone. Oops. Okay. 1, 2, 3. You stand behind me.
Hold on, Janine, come on in. Deb, can we help you up?
Thank you so much. Janine. Thank you so much.
Slow down,
I'm trying.
Yes.
Yep, I can too.
Great.
And may you have 100 more. Congratulations. Thank you all for being such a great part of our community. It's what makes this community so special, and it's great to be able to celebrate with everyone these types of events. We do not, but Mr. Mayor is going to do another proclamation, and he is going to proclaim 2025-05, recognizing National Police Week.
Okay. And I will just make a note that in our last comprehensive plan, we sent out a survey, and the police department had the highest approval rating of any department at 93%. So pretty amazing.
Pretty amazing.
All right. Whereas National Police Week in America was created to honor and recognize the sacrifice and contributions made by police officers in communities both large and small. And whereas National Police Week, held every year in May, was created in 1962 through a proclamation issued by then-President John F. Kennedy. And whereas our community will always appreciate and commend the risks police officers take every day to ensure our community's laws are properly enforced and that public safety isn't ensured. And whereas, now more than ever, the community also appreciates and encourages the community involvement facilitated by our police officers to both better serve and instill mutual trust, camaraderie, and positive relationships among our increasingly diverse population in Conshohocken Borough. And whereas police engage with and serve the public in the most varied and wide-ranging manner, their efforts do not go unnoticed. Now, therefore, the Borough of Conshohocken does hereby proclaim the week of May 11 to 17, 2025 as National Police Week in the Borough of Conshohocken, and encourages all residents to join the borough in recognizing each and every one of our officers for their professionalism, commitment to duty, and sacrifices they make to protect the citizens of this community. I'll present that to Chief Lennon here. after getting this up there for, yeah.
Another picture, guys. Lots our pictures.
All right, I'll join in.
Okay, I get all excited about celebrating and getting pictures taken. Vice President Kingsley let me know that we do have to take votes on these, so I'll do these together. So thank you. So Council, what I'm looking for is a motion to approve Proclamation 2025-04, recognizing our 100th anniversary for St. Paul's Baptist Church, and Proclamation 2025-05, recognizing National Police Week in the Borough of Conshohocken.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you.
Bring it on.
All right, we're not done celebrating. We got some more celebrations. So Shauna, would you like to present the borough's 175th anniversary celebration?
I'd be thrilled to. And you won't have to take a photo with me after I'm done. So you will probably all be aware already that May 15th is the actual 175th anniversary of our incorporation as a borough. So that's very exciting for Conshohocken as a whole. This year, we wanted to celebrate it in a very big way. So last year we had our first ever Simon's Heart Conchi Classic bike race in August. We spoke with QCW, who runs that event, and back towards the end of last year, we made this kind of grand plan to combine that event with our 175th anniversary celebration. So we have sort of a all-day, two-part, multiple location, borough-wide party going on Saturday. And I have Paul here, who did a bulk of the planning for this event, to tell you a little bit more about what we've got going on.
All right.
And who spoke to Mother Nature to give us a beautiful
Isn't
day?
that amazing?
We will not talk about weather until Saturday. All right. So first, as Shauna mentioned, we have the Conchi Classic Bike Race. So we'll start the festivities at 1 o'clock with the Masters 55 and 65 group. And we'll have racing all day until 7 o'clock around a course I will show you in a little bit that's slightly expanded. Last year, it went to Apple Street. Now we're taking it 2 blocks over to Walnut. And that, I think that change, along with the change in the date, has really increased the ridership that we're going to get from the racers. I think we're at over 130 racers for the day.
Over 160.
Oh,
Wow.
so I think this change is already positive just because we're going to get a lot more competitive and great racing to watch throughout the day. A couple of highlights in there will be the community ride at 4 o'clock. That will feature some members, generally children in our community, along with our police officers and firefighters.
Whichever firefighters can get an e-bike from someone will probably participate.
Yep, so we'll have that racing going on for 6 hours along the course, along with the community ride. We'll have the awards ceremony taking place right after the men's Pro 1 and 2. So they'll do the awards at the start-finish line at 7 o'clock for both the women's pro race and the men's pro race. So a nice cap to that event at Spring Mill under the start-finish line. Along with all the racing, there will be a VIP area at Southern Cross from 3:30 to 6:30. And on behalf of QCW, Shauna and I would like to extend an invitation to all of you to take part in that VIP area in Southern Cross. So that'll take care of the racing aspect of it. So now for the less fun part of it will be all the road closures that'll be taking place with this. So the yellow will be the race course itself. So road closures will actually start at 8 o'clock on Fayette Street. Between 3rd and Elm will close at 8. Everything else in yellow and red will be closed starting at 10 o'clock. And letters have gone out to residents in the affected areas by the course, and there will be a post going up tomorrow explaining all these road closures along with this image, similar to what we did last year, so we can get that word out to as many people as possible. This is happening. Here are all the affected areas.
Okay, now to the fun stuff.
Yeah, the fun stuff. So this year on Fayette Street, we're going to have a lot more activity. Last year, we really didn't have anything, and one of our goals was to try and add something to the event. So with Fayette Street being closed, we're going to kind of have the lower area of Fun Fest repeated. So we'll have bands on 2nd Avenue behind Tony and Joe's, along with the pub will be out serving, along with the boathouse. That will be where the sponsors will be coming out. So there'll be some sponsor tents on 1st Avenue, along with Kona Ice serving their water ice. So the bands at first, they'll start at 12:30 with the Wonton Soups. They're a very fun ska, funk, young band. They participated in our summer concert series. In 2023, they were also part of Fun Fest in 2024. So they actually love coming here, so I'm happy to have them back. And they're also a big hit at Music Fest in Bethlehem, so they know how to party. Our second band at 2:30 is Don't Call Me Francis. And I know they have a great reputation in this area as one of the top cover bands. And we'll have the full 9-piece band performing for those 2 hours. And then the party ends, well, I shouldn't say ends. This part ends with Modern Lux between 5 and 7. They're a very popular band with private parties, private weddings. They also perform at the casinos in Atlantic City. And we'll get a 7-piece band from Modern Lux. So a lot of big bands, a lot of fun music. When I had my phone call with these bands, I'm like, look, you're the experts. We want to have a party. Help us party. And I think these 3 bands will help us do that. So it's going to be a lot of fun on Fayette Street and with the music and with the race itself. So we have a lot of fun stuff up on Fayette and Spring Mill and Elm. And then the topper is, of course, celebrating our 175th anniversary, and that'll take place on Washington Street from 7 to 9 p.m. And we have a lot of fun stuff going on with that. We'll have food trucks. Right now, I have 4 confirmed. I'm still looking for 1 or 2 more because you can never have enough food trucks. Right now, the confirmed food trucks are From the Boot, Humpty's Dumplings, Snack Shack, who are more kid-friendly hot dogs, funnel cake, things of that nature, and Lilo's Mobile Stacks, who does water ice, and a lot of like the frozen ice cream on a stick. And they've all been to Fun Fest, so they're very familiar with the borough and how we do things when it comes to throwing events. Also, we have a bubble party provided by Buck's Bubbles. They'll have a 30 by 30 space. They're going to have a large bubble machine. They'll also have a build your own wand station. I think they might be doing Kid in a Bubble. So a lot of fun things with bubbles. I chose bubbles over foam just to try and keep the slipperiness down because foam could make a mess. I think bubbles will be less messy.
Fantastic. Great choice. Great choice.
Thanks.
Every
I'm glad to
parent
hear it.
thanks you. Yeah.
Oh, you're about to not.
Oh, no, you're not going to thank me, actually. We have Fabulous Faces coming back. They were our face painters at Fun Fest back in September. They'll be face painting, and the reason you won't like us as much now, glitter tattoos.
That was my idea.
Shockingly. So maybe after they get their glitter tattoo, if you want to wash it off, they can go to the bubble party. Then we also have Beanie Bounce. They're going to have a 65-foot inflatable obstacle course. We'll also have smaller inflatables and bouncy houses for some of the smaller kids, and then a lot of inflatable carnival games like axe throwing, and kind of what we see at Fun Fest. Then we'll also have a DJ for those 2 hours, capped off by the drone show from Starflight Drones at 8:30 to be the big capper of our 175 event. And one other thing I did not mention is the Conshohocken cab. Obviously, the cab will be impacted with everything that's going on in the borough. So from 2 to 6:30, it'll run a modified schedule. It will still run, it just won't hit the stops that are in the race course, and that'll be listed out in the post that goes out tomorrow. From 6:30 to 8 o'clock, we're going to have it work as a free shuttle on West First Avenue to take people to the 175th anniversary event down on Washington. So we'll have an A-frame set up on West First as the pickup point, and for those 90 minutes, the cab will run for free, taking people from the event on Fayette Street to 175. And then at 8 o'clock, the Conshohocken cab will return to its normal nighttime schedule.
So this setup is down on Washington Street. It encompasses a few of the parking lots down there. There is a safe zone for the drones where we cannot have the audience set up. So there will be a very obvious section where all of these events are, where everyone can safely watch, get their food, play with their bubbles, get covered in glitter, and watch the drone show. So I think it's going to be a really nice, family-friendly, hopefully well-attended event, and I can't wait to see you all there. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes. I live in the on East Hector within the bike race area. So can you just clarify for, I guess, the residents of wards 2 and 3 here, a little bit more about the traffic situation? So like, let's say you have a car inside the street and you leave, or would you be able to get back inside, and how will pedestrian traffic be handled?
So pedestrian traffic will be handled by marshals along the way. We will have police at all of the heavily trafficked intersections. We have 30 marshals coming from QCW as well as our fire police. Pedestrians will be able to cross through the race course when they need to. However, vehicles can exit. They cannot re-enter this course area until the race is over. The exit roads are the blue roads down at the bottom here to get them out to Washington to then be able to cross over and enter or leave the borough as they need. Someone like you on East Hector, you won't have to move your vehicle because you're not on the race course, you are just in the race course, whereas the roads in yellow are the actual course.
So residents, or there won't be parking allowed on the actual course, right?
Correct. They can park along Washington Street on either side. That's how we handled it last year, and it seemed to work out pretty well. And that actually was not, I think, really an issue at all, and I was concerned about it. So it seemed to work pretty well, and this year we are, I feel, giving back even more to our residents by offering so much excitement while this event happens. So I look forward to it becoming, you know, kind of a staple event. It's beautiful to do something for the charities that are involved. We had Simon's Heart last year. This year we have Simon's Heart and Johnny's Place, which is a more local charity. So it just, to me, this is very exciting. It's a lot to take on, but we're prepared for it. We've met multiple times internally, and I think it's going to be great.
Thank you.
So if folks inside the route have to leave to go to work throughout the day, they just get in their car and go? Do they have to call anybody to get onto the roads?
No, they don't need to call anybody. Every street in blue will be marshaled, and there will be someone there to let them out when it is safe to do so. As long as there are no riders, that course will be open for them to get out.
And then if folks along the route have to park down on Washington Street or in the garages, have we made any accommodations for the handicapped folks that may need to then get back to their homes if they need that?
So in the resident letter, there's all this information that's now gone out twice that instructs outreach if there is an issue. The only issues we have run into with any handicap access is for events happening at some of the borough businesses, and we've made separate accommodations for them using our gators and even using the Conshohocken cab to help move people around so that they can make it safely to where they are going. We haven't had any resident outreach, but that's something that we would address in the moment. We've got 5 gators of our own. We've borrowed 3. So we've got mobility in and around the course in a safe way for anyone who may need it.
So they would just call the regular borough phone number. Someone would have that is out and about to be able to get
Or they can flag down anyone along the course. We'll have marshals, police, fire, police, and a few firemen on bicycles within the course. They can grab anyone who's related to it, and we will all have radios so that someone who has access to a vehicle can get to them very quickly.
Which is probably the easier way to
I
get.
would do that, yeah, rather than the phone tree game, anybody who needs assistance
And
in
they'll
any
have a
way,
vest or
grab
something.
someone. Everyone will have a vest, a borough logo, a fire or police seal. It will be very obvious who is helping us work the course. You have the QCW people wearing
Marshals,
something. Yes, so everybody's going to be very obvious, and everyone has been instructed to just radio back when someone approaches them with any need.
Great. Any other questions related to the day? Well, you guys, it sounds like you put together one heck of a day. It's
Hope so.
many, many hours, so
We'll be very tired on Sunday.
you guys will all be tired at the end. That's wonderful.
For good reason.
Yep, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Great. Anybody else? All right, looking forward to it. Thank you for the
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you.
And this one doesn't need a vote. Has it in capital letters, no vote. I read that. All right. Next up is, I'm going to invite the Friends of Conshohocken Parks, Brian Magrann, the president, up to the podium to talk about a fundraising initiative and expenditure request.
Yes. So I'm Brian Magrann, board president of the Friends of Conshohocken Parks. We are partnering with the Marywood Park House for an upcoming fundraiser that's tied to the 4th of July, 3rd of July fireworks. We are tentatively calling it the Kaboom Kid Raffle. And the objective of this is to raise funds to help cover the cost of the Marywood Park House exterior building painting and restoration. There's a lot of chipped paint. We're seeing rotted wood, things that really, if we don't get ahead of it and address them soon, turn into much bigger issues. So we're trying to get ahead of that. Needs to be repaired and painted as soon as possible. It's not something where we could just go in and bring in some volunteers from the community to do. It's an issue where we need to have professional contractors, painters, construction workers to be able to do those repairs. The cost estimates are in the $50,000 to $75,000 range to do that work. And the objective is to be able to establish a continued partnership between the two committees of the Friends of Conshohocken Parks and the Marywood Park House. So, in terms of raffle details, the Kaboom Kid winner will be the Grand Master of the 2025 July 3rd fireworks. We're planning to do raffle entries. There are 4 for $20. Those can be submitted via Venmo or PayPal to the Friends of the Parks. We are planning to do promotion via social media. Friends of the Parks has a growing following. We've got some other organizations that are local, such as the Little League, that have also said they would put up posts for us, as well as some of the other local news sites happening, the mayor as well with theirs. So we plan to do an all digital push for the promotions. The winner will be picked July 1st using a random number generator on all entrants. So we'll be putting together a spreadsheet of everybody that has put in submissions. If they put in multiple ones, they'll be listed multiple times. Do that raffle. And Walt Hartnett, who's on our committee, does these regularly for the VFW. And there's all sorts of weird rules in the state of Pennsylvania around games of chance. So Walt is an expert on that because they do them all the time at the VFW. So we actually can't do any of those discounts of, oh, you buy more, you get this. Nope, because that skews the odds and violates the gaming laws, and we're not trying to do that, obviously. So the winner is going to get, we're calling it the Freedom Outfit. So something like Apollo Creed from Rocky. Basically, we're going to go to the dollar store or Five Below and find, the hat, a cape, something to really make it, feel special. There'll be social media recognition. There'll be picture opportunity with the mayor. We're working on some other potential things that can really make that feel like a special event, and they'll get to be at a special area. Obviously, the fireworks are at Marywood Park, are at Sutcliffe Park. nobody is allowed in the park, but there are some areas right nearby. So they'll get some sort of VIP seating, VIP treatment for that. What's really nice is that we can do this, there's no cost to it, other than the Freedom outfit. So it's really nice that we'll be able to, it's not a 50-50 or anything like that, so all the proceeds will be able to go back towards the Marywood Park House to help pay for those restorations. We're hopeful that the borough will be able to help cover the remaining funding for the gaps between what we're actually able to raise and what we're able to, the total needs for that project. And part of why this is important, obviously, the Marywood Park House, Mary Wood, who lived there, was tied to some of the founding families of the borough, very generously donated the home and the parcel of land that became Marywood Park, as well as where the community center at the Fellowship House is located. If you've been in the house, it's got some really, really cool, little, old fireplaces and a lot of character that you really don't see anymore. And we think there's a lot of potential. There's some art classes there, but I think there's really a lot of potential for that building to really be a unique space in the community. And it's something special that we don't want to lose because we're not doing the maintenance that we should be doing. So here's the promotions. We've got a great social media person. She also does a little bit of graphic design, aspiring Montco student. So these were some of the flyers that we're going to be using to put out in terms of getting the messaging out in the community, planning to do weekly posts, countdown to it, all those things, make a big deal out of it, make it really feel special. We've talked to some parents in the community who are like, oh my gosh, my kid would love to have this honor. It could also go to some 25-year-old who have been at a barbecue all day. And he or she, could be the kaboom kid as well. As long as people are making the donations, that's really what matters here. So that's what we're looking to do. We wanted to thank you for the consideration on that. I don't know if do we need Borough Council approval to do the? Okay. Do you want me to do the funding request? Okay. Separately, we are building a very strong social media presence with the Friends of the Parks. We're getting out in the community, doing different events. If you follow our social handles, you'll see them. But we want to be able to do some stickers and magnets, things that we can give out to stakeholders, that we can give out to donors, give out to people that come to those events that they can be, putting on their cars, putting on their water bottles, kind of bringing more awareness to the Friends of the Parks, hopefully getting more people out into the parks, more people interested in the projects that are happening there, and ultimately helping to donate money, whether it's them as individuals, whether it's people leaving money in their estates, but helping to facilitate from their employers that are located in the borough or the neighboring communities that want to be able to help contribute to these projects in the parks that really benefit everyone. So the two asks would be approval for the Kaboom Kid fundraiser. The second would be $300 to be able to purchase stickers and magnets to help promote the Friends of the Parks.
And
Any
about your
questions?
schedule
And then
too.
you want to change your schedule?
Oh, yes. So currently, the Friends of the Parks meets quarterly in terms of the rules of how it's set up. We've really got an engaged committee. A lot of them are here tonight, which is great. What we want to do is we like to change that schedule so we can meet monthly. We think this will really speed up how quickly we're able to get things done, get things approved, move things along. So those would be the three asks. Would be the Kaboom Kid raffle, $300 for promotional materials, and shifting to a monthly cadence for official meetings from quarterly. Any questions?
No, I just have a comment. Thank you for the work you've done on this, all of you. This has been so important to us as part of the Marywood Park Commission. And I just say kudos, and thank you for meeting with us when you didn't have a meeting.
Well, we want to. It's a community. It's a community effort. We all have to work together for this. So you're very welcome, and we're happy to be helping and contributing and giving back.
So to clarify, you're requesting the monthly meetings to begin in the year of 2026?
Correct.
Okay. All right, then, and there's plenty of time to actually plan out when you would like to have them and if there's any months you need to forego.
Yeah.
We'll coordinate that directly with Brian as the year goes, and then it'll be in your packet in December for approval with all of your boards and commission meetings. But they have this momentum, and we really do want them to encourage this continued collaboration and momentum. They're doing great work.
Question, if they need extra meetings in between their,
Well, we do.
they do that?
No, so from a board and a commission perspective, you have a designated monthly meeting where you can actually conduct official business. If there's anything that the organization wants to do outside of that, they can collaborate with each other, but it's not official business that would make its way in front of you for consideration.
Yeah, great job on this stuff, guys. This was a weird idea that I had that you guys took and ran with, and it's awesome. So great job on the marketing piece, the social media, like just everything you did. And the Kaboom Kit that's an awesome term.
Well, we think it's a great trial.
Yeah.
You know, I run a startup, so it's all about running experiments and seeing what works.
There's no
so
downside.
I think this could be
Yeah.
something where, you know, we look down the river and see Welcome America and all that type of stuff. We think, you know, we're not going to obviously get that big, but this is the first step of taking advantage of something. And I think the fireworks of all things really bring everybody in the community together, short of the dogs that don't like it.
Yeah, no,
But
it's a great job.
everybody else, you know, it really brings, everyone's hosting barbecues and cookouts and all those things. So we really think it's a great opportunity to bring the community together.
Sure.
Can I ask all the Friends of Conshohocken members to stand who are in the audience, just so we can acknowledge the work that you've been doing? Thank you. So I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. So 12 years ago, 13 years ago, when I got onto council, we did not have beautiful parks. We didn't see a lot of kids out playing the way that we see today. And it's a statement for our borough that we have been able to outfit all of our parks to current standards, as well as fun activities put on by our administration and the community center. And it's a tribute to our community. And the volunteers that are able to help us continue that legacy as we move forward are really important. So we need more volunteers. That's a plug for more volunteers. But this group is really committed and love what you're doing, want to be a part of it as it continues. And I think this is what makes us not only the proclamations and the celebrations, but being able to do this together. It makes us a tighter, more rich community. So thank you for spearheading that.
Welcome. Thank you for everyone that helps and everyone that donates and comes out to the events. Anything else?
Just the motion. Just the motion.
Frank, just so our residents are clear, so when they buy a ticket, they're donating to a 501c3, right?
Yes. Yes, the donation is to a 501c3.
Awesome.
Yes, thank you for clarifying that.
Okay, so we were asked for 3 requests, so I'm going to read out the 3 motions and let's move forward. So we have a motion to approve the request to utilize $300 towards the purchase of magnets and stickers for the organization. A motion to approve the request to host the July 3rd fireworks fundraiser with the proceeds benefiting the future exterior renovation of the Marywood Park House. And then the final motion is to approve a schedule change to a monthly meeting starting January 2026.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to accept all 3. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. It's a fun town to live in, guys. All right. The next fun title. So this, we're going to talk about our redistricting process and creating a task force by resolution. So I will invite Brian Flynn, our special counsel from Curtin and Heefner, to give us an update pertaining to the redistricting of the borough's ward maps.
Good evening, members of the council, Mr. Mayor, and members of the public. My name is Brendan Flynn. I'm an attorney at Curtin and Heefner in Bucks County, and I've been asked to serve as special counsel for redistricting for the ward redistricting of the Borough of Conshohocken. So just a little bit of background. Although probably if you're here tonight, you probably know this background, but the Borough of Conshohocken is made up of 7 wards. And each ward elects one member of the Borough Council. And this is significant because in any situation in which the districts are, officers are elected to a body such as this in districts, it needs to comply with the one person, one vote requirement of the U.S. Constitution. It's the 14th Amendment. It's a long series of cases from the U.S. Supreme Court that's held that, again, any elected body which is elected in multiple districts must be as nearly of equal population as is practicable. And there's a simple principle that each citizen's vote should be approximately equal in weight to that of any other citizen. And there is a little bit of wiggle room here. It would be very difficult, especially in a situation like this with a borough, to create regions or districts that have the exact same number of population. So minor deviations are permitted. And the way they calculate that, the way the Supreme Court has developed this, if essentially the deviation between the largest district and the smallest district is less than 10%, then it's presumptively considered constitutional. And I'll go into a little bit more detail when I get to the actual numbers from the 2020 census. And also, just to note, this is the total number of persons living in each district. So it's not, and it's based on the most recent census, which is the 2020 census. So it's not just all voters or all citizens of all persons. And again, because you all are elected by ward, one person, one vote applies here. So unfortunately, because of the patterns of development in certain parts of the borough and construction, there is a situation where the deviation is above 10%. And so here the borough stands. It must redraw its wards in order to comply with one person, one vote. And also it needs to comply with Pennsylvania statutory requirements for municipalities. The language with respect to population is essentially the same as one person, one vote, nearly equal in population as practicable. There's also requirements of compactness and contiguity, basically meaning that you can't have part of one ward, down by the river and then another part of that same ward up by the northern extent of the borough. So here are the numbers that the 2020 census comes out. Now, caveat being that these numbers have changed to some extent, between 2020 and today. That having been said, as you can see, the largest ward by 2020 population is Ward 1, and the smallest is Ward 7. And so basically, the way this deviation, I'm sure if there's any math major out there or statistics major, they could explain it far better than I could. But the math isn't that difficult. I was a government major, and I can understand the math. So essentially, you take the total population of the borough, which according to the census was 9,261, and then essentially you just divide that by 7. So you have, in a perfect world, each ward would be exactly the same size, 1,323. And then you take essentially what the deviation, you take the percentage deviation from that ideal population, 1,323, and then in Ward 1 has 1,835. So that's essentially 38.7% bigger than ideal. And then with Ward 7, you have a negative, you have that it's essentially 30, almost 31% smaller than ideal. So you add those two numbers together, and we have almost 70% deviation from the ideal. So that's I don't want to say the bad news, but that's the news that you all and the borough needs to deal with. But the good news is that there is a way that this process can essentially be crowdsourced to some extent, because there's a program known as Dave's Redistricting app, which is online and it's free to use. You just need to register with your email address, and it has the census numbers so that you can essentially redraw. Now, it was originally designed to do like state legislative redistricting or congressional redistricting, but you're able to do local redistricting as well, which is one of the really great tools that this, again, free website has. I have a little bit of sort of a tutorial. I may not go into this in extreme detail, but I hope that this will be available for people to reference as they get into this. So again, you go to the website, you create an account, you just need an email and a password. In order to access the map of Conshohocken Borough, it just takes a couple steps. You go to all maps, and then under published maps, I have published a map that essentially is just the borough, and it's divided into the 7 wards. So just start searching Conshohocken and you should be able to find it. Then you will duplicate that map. So because that map is the way the wards are right now, you're going to want to duplicate that map. And then at that point, you'll have a copy of the map that you can then work on to move around what's called census blocks. A little bit of more detail here. The census block is the smallest unit in which the Census Bureau has information for demographic data. And so oftentimes it is literally a block, like a city block or a borough block, 4 streets. There are also census blocks that have 0 population. So those are just important. Just if you have an issue with, you need to make something contiguous, you may need to use a 0 population census block to put something in there. It's the smallest geographical unit that's used in redistricting. This is important because the borough's wards are considered to be precincts under the system, under the DRA system. So you have to essentially break up the wards into census blocks, and then you can move the census blocks around. So again, just a little bit of tutorial here. In the main DRA page, you click block, and then you want to shatter the precinct, which is, I don't know, kind of a weird way to put it, but that's how they do it. So then essentially you choose a particular ward that you want to work with, and it'll show you what census blocks are there. And then essentially you can move census blocks from one ward to another. And and then essentially I suggest just starting with one of the smaller population wards. And I started with 1 and 2 because you've got a differential in population there between a large ward and a small ward that are right next to one another. And essentially, you're moving census blocks around, and I sort of, as I was doing this, I was also referencing like Google Maps, satellite view, and then also the borough's ward street map, which is very helpful, and just figuring out, okay, what what am I moving between wards here? And again, as I said, we need contiguity as well. So, I came into this being kind of concerned, well, is there a way to make it so that we can get less than 10%? Because if there's like literally no way to get 10%, then the courts will say it's okay, just do the best you can. But it literally took me about 20-25 minutes to sort of just by process of changing census blocks from one ward to another, then I was able to arrive at a map that had, I think it's just under 10%, it's 9.83%. Now, this particular map, just as an example, I'm not proposing that, oh, here's the map, you should just use the map, because I was doing it, I was not taking into account I don't possess the type of local knowledge that you all have, and that you all have, to say, well, okay, this map can work because it's less than 10% deviation, but well, it doesn't make any sense to have these blocks together with this block or something along those lines. And I know there was a mention at one point of the reason that Fayette Street divides the borough, that none of the wards go across Fayette Street is, well, there was the district justice maps were divided by Fayette Street. I understand that's not an issue anymore, but those are the sort of things that that I think is legitimate to take into account when coming up with a map. There's such thing, it's called a community of interest. This issue probably won't come up quite as much in this scenario with the borough, but particularly when you're doing statewide redistricting, it doesn't necessarily make sense to have this community of interest together with another community of interest. And I think, in previous years, you had sort of the famous example that parts of Montgomery County were connected and, with tentacles to parts, like Berks County, and sort of goes all over the place. And that was remedied. But those are the sort of considerations that the proposed redistricting task force will have to take into account. Now, some more good news. The math that I was talking about before that isn't too hard, the app actually does the math for you. So in that previous example, the map that I made in about 25 minutes, it will tell you, okay, in this scenario, Ward 1 is now 1,296, which is 2% below deviation, and and so on. And then it shows that the total deviation is about just 9.83%. So essentially, to recap, Constitution and Pennsylvania statute requires the borough to make sure that they have maps that are reasonably balanced by ward. Dave's redistricting app is able to give you an ability to give you or anyone in this room or anyone in the borough the ability to draw a map which are in compliance and does the math for you. So I understand at this point, I know that the council's not going to be voting on a resolution today, but the proposal that I sort of put forward as the way forward would be to create a task force, and then that task force would engage the public and have meetings and sort of put together a way that they can get submissions from the public, and then there will be public meetings and discussion, and the task force would then have a recommendation, and then ultimately this body would be the final deciding factor in determining the next map for Borough of Conshohocken. And then we'll have to do it all over again in 2030 or after 2030, or maybe not, but more likely than not, even if they're just very minor tweaks, we'll probably have to do it again after the 2030 census, because especially speaking to people who are in the know in Conshohocken, there's been development, and there's been additional building and new units opening up since 2020. So there will be some population. So I'd be happy to entertain any questions anyone from the council may have at this time.
I'd actually like to start. If you don't mind, Mr. Flynn, could you just go through your qualifications and experience? Kind of
Certainly.
explain to the public why we reached out to you specifically.
Certainly. Well, and thank you, sir. So I'm an attorney at Curtin and Heefner, and I have handled this process in the past, and I've actually been on both sides of this process, where I initially proposed a plan that did not comply with the 10% rule. I represented a citizens group that stood up essentially to oppose that unconstitutional plan, and then proposed their own constitutional plan, which was ultimately adopted by the court. So throughout that process, throughout both of those processes, I became very familiar with both the statutory and the constitutional requirements under one person, one vote, and the importance of doing this right, but also the value in engaging the public on these questions, so that it's not just it's not done as in the old days, sort of in a back room where with horse trading, but that it's done in a public process that the public is engaged in.
Anyone else have questions?
Yeah, you mentioned that Ward 1 was the biggest ward, and that's the one that's received all the new population since the 2020 census. Would it be all right to, I know, I'm not talking about things that might be built down the road, but those things are actually built and occupied. Can we put that in there?
Yes, the case law at the state level, and let me just go back to the numbers so that everybody has that in front of them. The case law at the state level, it has said that a body considering a new redistricting plan is able to consider sort of development that has happened since the census, and then the body can also consider future development. If it's probably more than just at a speculative level.
Right.
But if all right, well, there's been final approval given to this particular housing development or this particular building, we need to take that into account. So what I would suggest is that any map, any adjustments to Ward 1, you would probably want to make Ward 1 on the smaller side, or the new Ward 1 that, taking into account those new developments, where you can, ideally, you draw a map that is still less than 10%, but that Ward 1, instead of being the largest ward, is now one of the smaller wards, knowing that after 2030 there's going to be, so that you may be able to, once the numbers are crunched after 2030, you may be able to not have to redraw if it's still under 10%. And again, because of the state's redistricting app, it's a relatively easy idea to just all right, well, the census numbers are out. The people at Dave's Redistricting app have crunched them and checked them and made sure that they're good. And you can now go on there and say, all right, well, we're below 10% still, or okay, we're just above 10%. We need to do minor tweaks, or okay, we're a little more off 10%. We need to do relatively more major tweaks.
Anyone else?
You did a great job of explaining the process and the reasons behind it. What's a timeline for something like this?
So I would recommend that the process, that it be sort of completed, so that having public meetings, so that you're not necessarily having public meetings in the middle of August or something on those lines, where we all know sort of people aren't around, especially in August. That was frankly one of the problems that Central Bucks School District ran into, because once they realized that, oh shoot, our map is bad, and they needed to essentially come up with a new map, they had a kind of a compressed timeline that put a lot of meetings in the summer. So what I would recommend is, ideally, that the task force be stood up sometime, within the next month or two, depending on, finding people to volunteer sometimes is easy and sometimes is hard. But then that there be meetings that take place probably in the early part of the summer, and then additional meetings that take place in the fall. And then I would suggest probably, trying to get this done by the end of the year, I think is a reasonable, it's a relatively ambitious goal, but I think it's certainly a reasonable and doable one.
So, Mr. Flynn, you said that the task force would be the first recommendation. Playing inside the app for folks to see what it could look like. They bring it back, their recommendations to council, but it's not ultimately council's decision. Doesn't the state or someone else have to approve what
So that's a good question.
would move forward?
So the governing body, under the statute, the governing body, it has the task of doing it. And then the governing body goes to the county board of elections. And then the county board of elections, it's somewhat of like a ministerial role. But I could certainly see a situation where if a borough, and I'm not saying, it's not going to happen here because I think we have a good handle on what the issue is, but if I could see a situation where a borough or a municipality redraws and that map is not in compliance, and I could certainly see a situation where the solicitor to the Board of Elections would have to say, well, wait a second, I don't know if we can implement this because it's not in accordance. So it's it's a little different situation for municipalities redistricting versus school districts. For school districts, when they redraw the Board of Directors lines, they need to get approval from the Court of Common Pleas. The scenario laid out for municipalities is that you need to submit it to the Board of Elections. And again, there may be some checking that the Board of Elections does. But ultimately it is a lot of the decision making will be taken by this body ultimately.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you for your attention, and hopefully, hopefully nobody's eyes were glazed over.
Volunteers now.
I certainly think it's very interesting, and again, math's not that hard. I'm living proof of that. Thanks all. Oh, thank you.
They were all tonight?
So Mr. Peters, would you want to discuss kind of the stipulations and what we're talking about with redistricting and looking at a task force?
Sure. Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. And thanks, obviously, to Brendan. I think his involvement is going to be invaluable for us. So my part of this was relatively easy, at least at this point, which was coming up with how we would frame the task force. And we based it on your prior task forces and how you've handled those. So what's under consideration is that the task force have one person or one voter from each ward, so that would be 7 folks, and then no more than 2 members of Borough Council, so you're at 9 folks there. And then, obviously there will be individuals from Borough Administration that can serve as advisory members of the task force, but we envision it being 9 members total. They would propose to this council, again, keeping with the 7 wards, which has worked well in the borough. They would present to this council 3 ward maps that meet the requirements of law. And as proposed in the current draft, they would present those to you by December 3rd, which sticks to Brendan's efforts to try to get this done before the end of the year. Obviously, if it carries over slightly into next year, I think that's okay. So that's how the task force is being proposed. All of their meetings are proposed to be public. We put that right in the resolution, so there's no question. Certainly the public will be invited to attend and participate. So that's how we set it up, again, just based on how you've handled things previously.
So just in terms of administratively moving forward, the resolution to form the task force is in front of you for discussion this evening. At your voting meeting in May, the resolution to form the task force will be up for consideration. So the public, if they're watching or listening to this, if they have any questions or concerns, or feel free to reach out to their elected officials or to my office, and we will provide any clarity or confirmation on questions or concerns. As Mr. Peters stated, the task force will then be tasked with presenting no more than 3. So if they come up with 2 that they really like, they'll present 2 to you. It's a max of 3 in terms of what they're presenting to council for consideration. In the past with your task force, you have put out notice that you're looking for volunteers with the stipulations of what is required in order to participate. So we'll do the same thing for this instance. So an advertisement will go up after the resolution is approved on the 21st. And then we will gather names from each of the wards and present them to Borough Council for consideration.
If you have a ward that doesn't have any volunteers, how are we looking to still fill the right number so that we have
Task force.
odd number of people on the task force for the voting perspective?
Could the
Well,
council?
our hope is that doesn't happen
Yeah, I mean,
because
so-
we would like representation from each ward.
Right, and the way that I drafted the resolution, because obviously that is a possibility, the makeup of the task force is entirely within your discretion. So, the task force, I didn't put in here that it must have 9 members or it cannot function, but certainly we hope. I mean, obviously you hope you get a voter from each district. If you don't, then, to get to an odd number, you could have only 1 member of council on it, I suppose, but let's hope we don't have to think that through.
So it's up to us, council, to find people in our wards that are interested in helping us build this map so that we do have representation across the entire borough.
I had a conversation with a guy on Saturday. I was doing something else, and he spent quite a bit of time asking about it, so maybe he'll be doing that.
Great.
Can I ask, I don't want to harp on Ward 1. Well, I do want to harp on Ward 1. Do you have any idea of how many people have been added to Ward 1 with the Birch, Matson Mill, and 400 West Elm that weren't built in 2020?
We have general occupancy numbers that we can utilize in this process, which we will. They're not going to be 100% accurate, but they will capture what it is that you're looking for in terms of your concern. As Brendan indicated, shrinking some, growing others in order to potentially capture what will be official in 2030.
From what I've seen on social media, I mean, that's the thing that gets picked on a lot, and I think that it would be something that the public would accept, that we don't have to stick strictly to the 2020 census number, that to put those extra 1,500 or whatever citizens in it.
I would also say we wouldn't want to stray too far from it because a bunch of us were surprised at this. So when you start speculating about future stuff, you tend to go down a bad road as opposed to understanding what's there now with general occupancy. That makes sense.
That's what I'm talking about.
The future stuff, speculating on what potentially could be down the line or potentially could be, you may run into a scenario where you cause more problems than you
Right.
solve.
Yeah.
I don't
So-
think, or we probably won't speculate. I think if anything, we'll do an analysis of what's current and build that into the model.
Right.
And hopefully be able to reach that 10% deviation with different options.
So based on the timeline that we heard, it could potentially get through the process and be ready for the next primary this time next year? Sorry.
I think that, yes, I think, so I'm going back again to the Central Bucks. There was a very short period of time, this would have been in 2023, where the school board was attempting to have the new maps ready for that year. And again, this was Bucks County, so the Montgomery County Board of Elections may be a different story, but Bucks County Board of Elections wanted things to be in place prior to, at least, several weeks, if not a month, prior to circulation of petitions. Now, just in this situation, it's a little different because we would be going into an even year. So just also, I think I didn't make this clear, since it's currently 2025, obviously the current maps are being used in 2025. Now, what would be effective is because the way, obviously, each ward has a polling place, so the Board of Elections will have to do the administrative task of saying, okay, well, these census blocks are now in this polling place, and then there'll also have to be public engagement to the public to make sure, okay, this block is now, votes in this polling place rather than, where they voted before. The good situation, the good news though is that in 2023 we were running up against a very hard out of nomination petitions being circulated for the actual people who are going to be running that year. In this situation, it's more of an administrative task to make sure people know where they're voting, rather than, oh, the ward council people are going to be up, so they need to know where they're running. So it's I think we maybe have a little bit more time into early 2026. I think we probably certainly have to talk with the Board of Elections, and it's probably a good idea to do that earlier rather than later as well.
And there would be no scenario where it would happen between primary and general. They have to be the same, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, I think that was one thing that I'm safe to say that the Montgomery County Board of Elections would 100% say, like, no, we can't change this between the primary and general of a municipal election year in which people would be up for office. So that's correct.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other thoughts, concerns, questions? So our next steps are, over the next 2 weeks, getting any feedback, questions, concerns from our public, sharing that with administration and legal to make sure that we have all of our information for the voting meeting, where we would then set up a resolution to start the process with the task force. Okay.
We all have to find somebody in our own wards.
And we all have to find somebody in our wards.
That'll happen.
Are we looking at 1 meeting a month, 2 meetings a month? So, because they're going to ask them.
I will have that prepared for you for confirmation on the 21st.
Okay.
It's a really good question.
Yep.
Do we draw straws for members of council?
Sorry, just to jump in here again.
Mr. Flynn's back.
I think, just from a perspective, I wouldn't see more than 2 meetings a month per, I also think that's a lot to ask already. So asking for people to do more than 2 meetings a month would probably be, I don't know if
We won't, our usual task force in order to get volunteers is 1 meeting a month. So we'll do one at a minimum, it'll be 1 meeting a month. And then if there's additional collaboration or discussion needed, we can always add as we go. If I'm basing it off of what we've done previously for different topics. But I will confirm all of that and present that and make sure that that's public with the task force approval on the 21st, and then we'll advertise it and we'll be good to go.
I just have one other question. Because the people who are running have to have petitions signed, doesn't it have to be done before the petitions go out?
So that's exactly right, and that's sort of what I was
Yeah.
explaining previously, that because it was an odd year in which the Central Bucks situation, they were trying to redo it. They had a very hard out that, like, the Board of Elections had to have the map approved by the judge prior to petitions being start to circulate. But because I'm not speaking with 100% certainty, but my understanding is, it's even years, the ward council members are not up for election in even years. So it would be more of a situation where, it would be, okay, you're voting for your state rep or your state senator, and because the wards have changed, there's where you're voting in an even year is going to change, but you're not. There isn't an impact on a potential candidate by initiating new wards in early 2026. Hopefully that makes sense.
Next.
There's no
Alrighty.
further questions.
So we got some
May I
homework to
please be
do.
excused?
You are excused.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
All right, next item on our agenda this evening, we don't have anything under land use, public hearings, or ordinances. It looks like the next item would be under manager matters, and first item under manager matters is to consider approving 203 East 12th Avenue, the financial security escrow release number 1, in the amount of $85,795.93. I'm looking for a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is to consider approving payment application number 4 for the traffic signal modernization project along the East and West Elm Streets. So what I'm looking for is a motion to approve payment for application number 4 for the traffic signal modification project along East and West Elm Streets in the following amounts. East Elm and Harry Street, $166,388. West Elm and Caldwell, $71,561.50. West Elm and Maple, $2,768.93. West Elm and Oak, $28,680.21. I'm looking for a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item is to consider approving Resolution 2025-11, and this will authorize the sale of a police vehicle on municipal. So we have a 2018 Chevy Tahoe and a 2014 Chevy Equinox, and we're looking for a motion to approve Resolution 2025-11, authorizing the sale of these two vehicles.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is to consider approving a tuition reimbursement for Officer Walter for the 2025 summer semester in the amount of $3,576.28 plus the cost of books, and this is part of the collective bargaining agreement.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is to consider approving change order number 5, and that's for the Sutcliffe Park Trail reconstruction and BMP project. This was reconstruction and BMP project for the stone installation by the inlet number 1 in the amount of $6,713, and then a no-cost extension of the contract times with substantial completion by May 30th of 2025. So looking for a motion to approve change order number 5.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is to discuss discussion related to the bids received for our architectural services for the Public Safety Service Facility. So I'm going to turn it over to Steph to talk a little bit more about what you sent us for our reading pleasure over the last week.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so we'll dive in. We released an RFP for architectural services that was related to the Public Service Safety Facility. Those responses were due. We received 18 responses to that RFP that was circulated. So a lot of interest in coming to the Borough of Conshohocken and working on this project with us and our whole borough team, which is great. Sent to Borough Council was a tabulation of all of those 18 RFP responses, and we broke out administratively. We went through each one of the RFP responses. We focused on specific topics, which were the firm, the contact information, the location, the specifications that were laid out in their RFP response, whether or not they took extra effort to tailor the RFP response to the borough specifically, the cost, the expertise that was laid out, their approach to how they would handle the project itself, what was their plan, their action plan in terms of working with the borough on this important project, the project timeline from design approvals bidding, and also the construction timeline, the team that they had composed. A lot of the architecture firms themselves have to reach out to other team members, so other structural, MEP, public safety experts, whoever that may be, whatever they thought was important to bring to the table. So we looked very closely at that team because those are the professionals that we'd all be working with on this project. We also looked at their references and provided council with administrative comments. So as we were reading each of those RFP responses, we pulled out what stood out to us, what was important to us. We've had numerous meetings with our fire and our EMS who are going to be the users of this facility. So what specifically stood out in each one of the RFPs in order for them to be considered, we thought would be good partners with our first responders. So it was a great exercise to go through. I would say that all 18 had a very specific, clearly a very specific attributes that can be applied to each one of the firms. And after we did that deep analysis, then we broke it down for council into specific categories. So I'm going to start with the no category. We did eliminate RFPs from consideration based off of an initial review of the 18 responses. And the no categories were broken down into further subcategories. So we had no RFP responses that became a no because they did not meet the specifications of the RFP. So for example, the borough asked for a not to exceed cost as it pertained to each firm. We did have 3 firms that provided a percentage cost instead of a not to exceed. And I do understand from their perspective while that works for them in terms of their budgeting, but that's not what we asked for and it doesn't work for us. And therefore, they were eliminated from that process. If at the very beginning of what's going to be a 100-year foundation project from the borough, you can't respond to what we asked for, then you were eliminated from the process. So there were 3 firms removed for that reasoning. There were also 2 firms that were removed from consideration based off of the high cost. They were just too expensive for what we internally have estimated for the cost of construction. So even if you broke it down as the other firms had in terms of a percentage fee, their fee was still higher than those we eliminated who gave us a percentage range. So there were 2 firms that were eliminated because of the cost exceeded what we had budgeted internally in terms of estimating. And then lastly, in terms of the no category, there was 7 firms that were moved into a no category simply because we felt that the scope of work and the services, as we looked across their references, their expertise, like buildings or other examples of municipal facilities that they've built in the past, we just didn't feel like the standards or the expectations for this project and what we as the Conshohocken community are looking for was inherent in the response that they provided. That could have been there either wasn't attention paid to the municipality that they were submitting to, and they referenced another municipality in their RFP response. Two, we felt that their not to exceed cost was much too low, meaning that they didn't truly grasp the nature of the project that we were trying to build, or didn't do their research in submitting their response, and that they didn't really capture the scope. We did have some firms who watched our public meetings and were versed in terms of what our first responders had said in multiple public meetings in terms of what they were looking for. So those were the no categories, and that did eliminate quite a few. The yes category was based specifically on that they met the specifications of the RFP. We felt that they understood the scope of the project for Conshohocken Borough. The costs were reasonable based on staff expectations and preliminary internal estimates for realistic construction costs. And we also felt that in selecting 6 of the 18 firms for consideration, we were able to also give you a range. And that kind of happened organically through the process in terms of cost, which was very interesting to see. So you have a firm that is a firm that we're recommending that you consider to move forward in the process that is around the $500,000 mark in terms of cost, all the way to a firm that we do recommend that you consider that's at the $1 million mark. So while there is a range in terms of cost, there's a difference in services that they provide, and we have the opportunity to ensure that we select the correct architecture firm to work with us on this project. And so we think that if we're giving you this range and you're bringing them in to interview, you'll see the different scopes, the different services, the different types of service you'll get from each one of those different firms, and that will help you in your selection process. I do think it's important to note that this is an RFP. We did put an RFP out. It is a professional service, though. So while the RFP generated who we potentially could bring on as a partner, that doesn't necessarily mean that the costs that are associated with that RFP response are definitive. And that's kind of, again, what we're looking for. We're looking for a partner. We're looking for a member that's going to join our team and join our engineer, our first responders, our public safety and emergency management, everyone who will be working collaboratively on this project, legal, financial advisor, bond counsel, so we get the right fit. And we get what we're looking for in terms of what's going to last 100 years, so that our fire and EMS have what they need today, but also will have what they need, and they can continue to grow as our community continues to grow. So that was the process. You did get a synopsis of those 18 responses. Those 18 responses were somewhat lengthy, so we tried to break it out for you so that you could pull the major facts out of each one of them. And so, any questions on the process and how we got to where we are?
Yeah.
All right, so then I will move through the 6 firms that administration is recommending council to consider. There's Alloy 5 Architecture that's in Bethlehem, located in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. They were at a $492,000, and while this is somewhat of a smaller firm, we did feel that their attention to communicating design to all the audiences, and they continue to talk about project planners, exchanging ideas, not merely creating them, for both firefighters and taxpayers, lent something different compared to the other architecture firms that fell within that same price category. So we pulled them out and made them a firm for consideration. We have CBP Architects, who are located in Philadelphia. They came in with a $588,000 not to exceed. We felt that they had a heavy emphasis on technology and space programming to strengthen the first responder community. they did add that in as part of their scope that was not included in other scopes. And they did talk about the long-term importance of this project and the company being part of the borough team. So we pulled them out. We then had Core States Group, which is located in Westchester. That was a not to exceed of $772,000. They've worked with over 30 fire and EMS companies over the last few years. They have an integrated service model. They talked a lot about transition zones and speed of response and comfort and privacy. They took the approach, which was slightly different from others, where they presented their design from the first responder perspective as opposed to the municipal perspective, so that was slightly different, that stood out. And they also included sample status reports and details in terms of the phases as they would work through the process. So that was the reason we pulled them out. GKO Architects are located in Ambler. They were one of the firms that actually provided a concept sketch in the RFP response for us to review. They came in at a not to exceed of $779,000. They took it so far as to actually include square footage and assumed a construction cost estimate that was almost spot on with what we were estimating in terms of square footage and cost estimate without doing any major reach out with the borough. So clearly understood the scope. And their cost, unlike others, allowed for an increase in square footage. So there was some wiggle room there. They've done a lot of work in Montgomery County, and they had a heavy emphasis on publicly funded bid projects and grant. They're working with a municipality right now who had damage from a major storm that was one of the worst insurance claims that Divot has ever experienced. So they've kind of seen the worst and are building something that's promising for that municipality. So that's definitely unique. And they've also worked with our school district in the past, so there is that connection there as well. And then Mann's Woodward Studios. So this is one of the ones that is out of the box, and we do think it's important to consider out of the box so that you can see what else is out there. They are located in Baltimore, Maryland, and they came in at a not to exceed of $950,730. Their approach for each phase actually included objectives, goals, and a work plan. There was only one other firm that went that far in terms of laying that out for the borough at this point in the project. And while we do have a concern that they're Maryland-based and it's roughly 90 minutes from the job site without traffic issues, we do think you should bring them in. We think you should bring them in. They're nationally recognized, award-winning expertise in design of fire stations and public safety training facilities. They actually provided proprietary information at the end of their response that was specific to publication that was generated to discuss the flow and the importance of the health, safety, wellness of our first responders and how building design actually affects that and how it can be a positive experience or a negative experience. And we do think that because there is that proprietary information and that team brings that to the table, that you should at least interview them to determine whether or not that outweighs the distance. And then the last firm is the Schrader Group that is located in Conshohocken. They came in with a not to exceed of $1,056,500. That did specifically include the coordination of the civil engineering with the borough engineer. Unlike any other RFP response, it also included preparing RFPs, soliciting RFPs, reviewing work for compliance with RFPs for any other scope of services that are unknown as of now. And that need to be contracted at a later date for the project at no additional cost to the borough. So that stood out. They also provided their own estimate in terms of what they thought would be a sufficient square footage for a facility in terms of what we're looking for, along with assumed construction costs, which were in the range of what we were estimating. They have completed over 100 public safety projects, a lot that are both local and national. And most importantly, they have on their team a fire design consultant who has 36 years of experience in fire safety design. They're located 2 miles from the borough, 1 mile from the job site, which is invaluable. They focused a lot on having a vested interest in the facility because it would directly serve their office. I mean, it's a great selling point. Their staff in the event of an emergency. So a lot of focus on them being present, responsive, readily available, and the fact that they like the previous firm that's in Baltimore, so a close comparison, we would say. They also have their own public safety design methodology, which was very different from any of the other firms. It included key design characteristics to consider specifically for fire and EMS facilities. So we were, from our perspective and from what we've heard from our first responders, Bill's in the back of the room, that was important and stood out in terms of the type of teammate we would be getting in this endeavor. So with all of that information, we have 6 firms that we are considering. They're up for discussion this evening. We discussed the firms that we are recommending that you remove from consideration. Are there any changes to the yes and no categories that you'd like us to discuss? Any questions?
Are we allowed to say somebody on the no and kind of get a little bit more understanding as to why they were a no?
Sure. You can do it. This is your meeting. You can do whatever you want, yeah.
Are we allowed to mention the firm's name and clarification on that?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So, under the no category, the very last company you have listed is DB Design Blends. You said there was, it was very close with that.
Yes.
I wanted to know where that line kind of fell for you guys in that decision making.
So in your yes category, you can see how we kind of grouped in terms of costs. And so DB Design Blends came in at a not to exceed of roughly $898,000.
Right.
What did stand out is that while other firms included coordination on things like furniture, fixtures, artwork, plants, because we understand that there's the whole design, but eventually we're going to have to move our first responders into this facility, right, and that it's actually going to have to be usable and livable for them. Those are all additional services. And that to pull that out at this point just seemed a little, if you're comparing, literally, there's only so many things you compare and contrast.
Right.
They also referenced in their submission 2 parcels of land, it's 3 parcels of land. So that's nitpicking, but that's where we're at in the process.
Sure.
And then they had a lot of expertise in multifamily units. Their portfolio was more broad as opposed to having more of a public safety focus. And so for all of those reasons, they were a close consideration based off of the type of work that they clearly had demonstrated. But we felt that the other 6 were better suited for what Conshohocken was looking for.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other states you saw?
Well, I mean, if we're gonna, one of the yes, the core states group, I'm not sure about that one as well. I know you put that in the yes category.
Well, so the proposed process moving forward. This is a lot of information to take in, and we wanted you to hear from us who took those responses in and were basically pulling out what we thought were the important pieces for all of you to consider. In on May 21st. So this evening, we're presenting the information, discussing the information. I'm here to answer any other questions that you may or may not have on all 18 of them. I'm happy to do that. On the 21st, the next 2 weeks, if you can take those 6 firms that we've selected as yes, digest them, look into them more, ask questions. Then on the 21st, the goal is to finalize any firms that you want to bring in for an interview. So let's just say, Stace, that Core States is a question mark for you,
Right.
or whatever other firms there may be. You can pull them out of the process.
Right.
You can interview as many firms as you want.
Right.
We want to make sure we get this right. But if there is one that you're not comfortable with, or you don't like, or that you're on the fence with, and you want to pull it from that list, that's totally fine. We will provide if we feel strongly, because we know our first responders feel strongly about a certain firm, we'll let you know that as well. But after the 21st, the goal on the 21st is basically to get a final interview list. We will schedule those interviews for the June 4th meeting. We will most likely start that meeting early.
Yeah.
It'll most likely be like a 6 p.m. start. And I know that some of you may or may not be here, so we have a ton of technology that can capture the meetings and the interviews, and there's not going to be any decisions made that evening, so we'll have a way for you to evaluate all of those interviews so that when you're faced with a decision, you'll have an opportunity to have reviewed them, even if you're not physically here. And after those interviews, if you're ready to, you would potentially appoint a firm at your voting meeting in June. If you need more time, you take more time. But we are mindful of the processes moving forward. The agreement of sale is signed for number 2, and that whole sale process is moving forward. And so we are trying to diligently, on your behalf, continue to move this in an efficient and expedient manner, understanding that any decision you make on a firm, those dollars are going to have to be captured in your 2026 budget. Okay. And I know that my administrative staff is tired of hearing me say it, but we are in the process of developing the 2026 budget at this point.
Right.
So, which is why we have laid this out for you in this timeline.
So can I just ask a favor then, before
Yeah.
the next meeting, since we're here? We're talking about building a building for like 100-year sustainability.
Yep.
And I've skimmed all 18 of them, and I can easily miss stuff, but can you guys pull a column for LEED accreditation,
Sure.
either people on staff or that the firm is accredited? Because we were talking about being green, being more efficient, having those things in place, and we're talking about 100 years. I don't want to miss something now that's going to have to be paid for and retrofitted 10, 15 years down the road, 20 years down
I
the
will
road.
add in a column to
Thank
your
you.
Excel sheet.
I appreciate
Yes.
it. Thank you.
Any other questions I can answer
Anyone else?
tonight?
A lot.
Are you comfortable with the process so far? You're
Yes.
comfortable with
Yes.
how we're
Yes.
handling it?
Yes.
Okay. You're good with, for tonight, moving forward with those 6 firms?
Yes.
Okay, and then on the 21st, our goal is to confirm and vote on firms to bring in for interviews, and we will schedule them accordingly.
So we'll have the discussion and the vote on the same night.
You'll discuss which ones you want and vote to bring them in for an interview, yes.
So I would recommend if you continue to review your stuff and think somebody else should be popped in there for consideration, you have those discussions with Stephanie ongoing so that we're ready to.
Or removed.
Are we then looking to bring them in for an interview on the 8th?
June
I'm sorry,
4th.
Sorry, June 4th.
Yep.
Okay.
Interviews will be June 4th, and then you'll deliberate and decide if you're ready to select a firm. If not, you'll push that decision to July.
And then the interview process will be us asking questions. So one of the things that I would appreciate is from the key stakeholders, the first responders, any questions that you guys want out there during the interview process, if you could get them to us ahead of time so that we can then ask those questions on your behalf.
we'll make sure that by June, we have reached out to the appropriate individuals so that you have that at your disposal.
Anyone else? Okay. All right,
Great.
that's
Thank you.
exciting. A lot of exciting stuff in Conshohocken.
Yeah, no clap.
Should we stand?
Well, I think I should clap to all the council members who read thousands of pieces of paper over the last couple of weeks. All right. So next up on the agenda, as we have a long evening here, is Ray's going to come up to the podium and he's going to talk to us about a need for an emergency response fire chair and how you're going to let us know how you got to this need that we overlooked, I guess, over the years.
Yes, thank you. I did speak to the fire department at 7 o'clock about this topic, the previous topic. They will have plenty of information.
Oh, yeah, guaranteed.
Plenty of opinions and things like that for the interior of this building and how they would like to see it. We've also visited multiple fire departments, fire stations, so that will not be a problem. So I want to talk about these striker stair chairs. We had an unfortunate incident that had good and bad scenarios in it, and then we want to go over it and why I'm asking for these supplemental appropriations. So on April 31st, at about 3 o'clock, we had a fire department had a call over to Marshall Lee Towers. Everybody's familiar with Marshall Lee Towers. Make a long story short, their elevator, the electrical part of their elevators caught on fire, and it destroyed everything. I mean, all the electricals. So that rendered both elevators worthless, for lack of a better term. And a 6-story building with about 50 occupants in it who, based on the building code, had to be asked to leave. That's a long story made into a short sentence. They had to be asked to leave. We quickly realized that we didn't have 100% knowledge of what was going on in Marshall Lee. For people who've been here a long time, Marshall Lee has been a place where generally the retirement community of Conshohocken and the area had gone to in the past. Marshall Lee is considerably different now. Marshall Lee accepts pets, which we had no idea about until we had this incident. Dogs, large dogs. They have people who are both mobile and completely immobile that need the paraplegic, basically need 100% help to move anywhere. They have others who are mobile, but are only mobile through electronic chairs that they have, which presents a huge problem because you're not really going to be able to carry, I don't know what the weight of an electronic chair is, but it's very considerable. You're not going to carry them down 6 stories. So it quickly became an issue, which I had no idea would be an issue, as to how we were going to get these people down from some of the top floors. So one of the things that was requested were these stair chairs. So it basically required 2 people to operate them, one at the bottom, one at the top, and you slowly bring somebody down a set of steps. That's the short version of it. The expert is going to talk about that in a few minutes. But they slowly, they certainly help the functionality of trying to bring somebody down the steps, but it also is a lot safer for not only the person, but the first responders who are having to take somebody down 6 flights of steps. But what I didn't realize is that we don't have any. That in the first responder world, stair chairs are basically a ambulance device. They are provided by the ambulances and not generally by the fire services. Now, the thing that I think we missed in our conversations over the last few years was we have this QRS, this quick response unit that we have EMTs that go out on calls. There was never a discussion about stair chairs because I assumed we had them. And when we asked for them, we basically had to reach out to ambulances in the area to try to get them. Now, the problem with that is this isn't an evacuation because people are injured. This is an evacuation that's going to take a long time, and ambulances, including Narberth, are private ambulances, and we can't tie them up forever. I'll let Bob answer this, but when I'm sorry?
Sorry.
Bob was supposed to be here. He had to leave.
I got bailed on.
This is his brother. Yeah. So when Bill,
I was going to say, I blinking here. I'm like, that doesn't look like Bob to me.
Yeah.
I believe when a stair chairs, they just can't leave us a stair chair for us to use. That's not part of the process. So we ended up doing what we have to do in these circumstances and reached out to whoever we reached out. We had 2 private ambulances actually come. One of them had an electric stair chair. And we only were able to get one of those ambulances there relatively quickly because Anthony Rambo, who is a part-time firefighter for us, is an EMT in Philadelphia. And he has a friend who has a company in Philadelphia who is also a Philadelphia firefighter. And he was able to respond quickly. So the stair chair, especially the electric one for some of the patients that they had to bring down was very, very helpful. I'll let
Bill.
talk about some of the reasons why we should have a stair chair. How's that?
So first of all, that incident, if we were to dispatch ambulances for that incident, there was talk of up to 20 ambulances. That's a mass casualty. I mean, that is taking 20 911 ambulances out of the system from all over the place. So that's just not a scenario that we can do. These stair chairs, each one of our ambulances have stair chairs on them. They're, it's just one stair chair per ambulance. If you look at the picture of the stair chair, on the bottom of the old stair chairs, there were just 4 wheels. And you basically it was an aluminum device. The traction is much better on that. But it was an aluminum device that you literally, the 2 people had to carry the person down. So that created a lot of injuries. It's the same thing with a stretcher. The old stretchers weren't lift stretchers. So you would take them out and we would have a lot of back injuries and a lot of different, injuries in that aspect. The advantage to these, all of these are on our trucks. They're called Strikers. If you look at the back incline there, or the back tread thing, what that literally does is you pop that down and it glides down the stairs. Anybody can operate that thing and move that person down there. We always use it with 2 people. Most times, or sometimes we use it with 3 people, and the third person is really just a guide, is somebody that will guide you down the steps, for ultimate safety. But if you look at that, the treads on there, that literally will go up the steps and down the steps. That device does all the work for you. Our personnel do not do it. They just guide it. You pop that down at the back of the steps and then you just turn it. The alternative of getting anybody down a flight of steps or up a flight of steps is a device, either a stretcher, not a stretcher, a longboard, a set of reeves, or a Stokes basket. in houses within Conshohocken, we've all been in there, you can't get somebody down there safely. A longboard is obviously a longboard that is a sturdy device. There's no bend in it. It could take up to 4 people at each angle to carry that person down. To maneuver that around a set of steps is extremely hard to do. That's where you come with these stair chairs. It's the most efficient way to get somebody down a flight of steps. The green straps that are on there, you basically put somebody in there and they're self-contained. So they cannot maneuver out, they can't, flap their arms or do anything in order to hurt themselves. They're great devices. We have minimal injuries. I actually can't think of an injury that we've had recently within the last probably 5 years. I mean, I'm in this for 30 years, and the way we did it before was just brute force. Just literally pick them up.
Is there a weight limit on them?
That, 2 people can do it, or 1 person could do it with 200 pounds going down. The maximum on those are 500 pounds. If you got anything above that, that's a whole different scenario.
And these have the footrests on them.
And these have the footrest on them, which is a very sensitive issue with me, but let's not get into that.
I haven't seen anybody as happy about footrests as my dad was when he got his first recliner.
The footrest is, not all of our trucks have the footrest on it. And the advantage of the footrest is that you literally can put somebody's feet on that footrest and then strap them in. Some of our trucks do not have those footrests. So what happens is that the person's foot just dangles going down the steps, and it just makes it very difficult. These were instrumental in getting people out of Marshall Lee. Again, think about it. It would have become a mass casualty without any injuries. It would have become a mass casualty. It just doesn't make sense.
And you're looking at both of these?
So, the other one's an electric one, and I'll talk about. We actually had these both demoed. Bill was there for the demo with these. So, the electric one was there, not this name brand. The reason why we're going to Stryker is because Narberth has Stryker, and we're all going to be in the same building. We're all going to share that type of equipment, so we want to make sure we get the same thing. But the company that came from Philadelphia had a electric stair chair, which I had never seen before. The good thing about the electric stair chair is it goes up, and it actually carries people up the steps. So we demoed it here, and we put a 200-pound man on a chair, and the person who was doing the demonstration, she was about 135 pounds, and the person at the bottom only held it with 2 fingers, and she was able to go the entire flight of the building with no problem at all. It's easy to maneuver. It's a 500-pound capacity. It plays a dual role in these scenarios. So remember, the fire personnel, they have to carry the gear up the steps. So they have to carry all their things that they need for their medical equipment. That they can easily put that onto these chairs to go up. The regular stair chair, that is still, you're bearing weight. You're still there. You're having someone pull and someone pull from the top and someone push from the bottom in order to get them up. In the Conshohocken, we do have a lot of scenarios. And one scenario I'll give you in particular is the basement scenario where somebody goes down in the basement and you have to get them up a flight of steps. There's some houses on Fifth Avenue, newer houses on Fifth Avenue, that have dual set of steps to get you to the first floor from the basement. That means that somebody is going to have to jog up those steps with a manual stair chair. So because that plays such an integral part in this, and remember the use for these for both of these, a lot of it's going to be commercial. We have, can you go to that other? We have, this scenario is because both elevators went down. When both elevators go down, that's it. Building has to be unoccupied. We have 96 elevators in the Borough of Conshohocken. I never thought I'd say that. 96 elevators. 110 structures, at least 4 stories. So at least 4 stories means there's a basement in Conshohocken because of the height limits. So when you start looking at all those things, and with 6,000 individual living units, these things are going to be more important when we have a scenario like at Marshall Lee Towers. And we did have a pretty similar scenario at 400 West Elm Street when the sprinkler system went too. Elevators are not easy to repair. The electronic equipment, 400 doesn't have all of its elevators working still. That incident was several months ago. Marshall Lee Towers thought that they were going to be able to get their elevators working in 7 days. They'll be lucky to get them done in 3 months. And all those people had to be moved out. They all went to Horsham. You didn't hear much about it because everything went well. And that's another story in itself. I mean, we have the first responders all there, but our first responders, we had Plymouth, we had North Wales there. We had both Lower and Upper Merion. But if we don't have the equipment to allow those people to help this scenario, it becomes much more problematic. And in this case, they only had to evacuate 48 people because half of the rooms were being remodeled. So half of the building was empty at the time. If that entire building, and we can't predict who is going to be on what floor and what their condition is going to be, if that entire building had to be evacuated at that point, a scenario that took, I think it started at 3 o'clock, and Dave Lennon and Chief Gunning and myself left at around 11:30. This probably would have went on until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning if we couldn't get the equipment. Again, we were lucky enough to have it. The county did put out a message to try to get ambulances, but because of the scenario, because this is not necessarily a mass casualty, this is evacuating a building because the building's not working, you're not going to get the same type of response. You're not going to get the same type of response if it was injuries and fire and all that other stuff. So we have a lot of these buildings, but we also have a lot of the residentials. It's not just one or the other. So not having these on trucks, especially since we do not hire anybody, part-time or full-time, that isn't an EMT. So they can go to the call. If the ambulance is tied up, they can start the process. They can pull the wheel. And a lot of times it's our fire people do assist the ambulance to get these people down anyway. All our fire personnel are very familiar with how to use the stair chair. But it does come with training. It does come with everything you need to make it safe. Divot, our insurance company, obviously feels that it's important to have because on our side, the workman's comp issue for both volunteers and, remember, we provide workman's comp for, don't we? Yeah, I thought we do. Oh, okay. Well, the state, I'm sorry. But for our people, the workman's comp, Divot thought it was very important. I'm sorry, Divot provides it for our people. The state provided it for volunteers. But they thought it was very important to give us, is it $4,500 or $5,000 for one of these? So they've so basically we've purchased one with the funds that we're getting through Divot. We have 3 units that these can go on, the Quint, and an engine, and we would have one in one of the vehicles to be able to transport to a situation. That's the ultimate goal. The reason why we're not bringing this up in capital is because of the what ifs. Like, what if this happens again tomorrow at another building? We have to deal with the same scenario. Generally, the way we work is we know it's a problem, we try to resolve it. This is one of those scenarios. We were going to train at the Marshall Lee Towers for this type of an incident. We don't have to do that anymore. We know exactly what we're going to have. I think it was an eye-open experience for the borough in a good sense, and it was an eye-opening experience for the people of the Housing Authority, who know what they have, what they're going to have to deal with in this case. But no injuries. People who they had to take down someone bring down someone who's a paraplegic from 4 stories, which is a very tenuous scenario. They have to be fully strapped in. They have no control over anything. If you think about going down a set of steps in a chair or somebody carrying you, and I've done the reef basket thing. that's like basically going down in like on a mattress. So it's not a great thing. Make a long story short, that's what
That portion of it's not very medically, if you're dealing with somebody that has a fracture or something like that, you need to get them down on the longboard. This would not work. But all of the people at Marshall Lee at that day, that day were able to, come down in this. They weren't injured. But we still needed to physically get them out of the building.
And we're making other strides to try to take care of some of the situations. We've been lucky with some of the transportation stuff. We've have a relationship with a company now that has a handicapped accessible vehicle that is now parked at one of our lots temporarily. So we're making arrangements with them to be able to use that for an incident like this. It's definitely not an easy task. Weather didn't help, but that I think we had an after action on this, and I think that is our worst case scenario in the municipality.
What's the lifetime on these chairs?
So the battery operated one went into service in 2020. They started using the battery ones. My question was about the battery, obviously. They have had no problems with the batteries. All the batteries that they have out have the same life. The kit that we included in this, which has Bill's footrest and everything else, that has 2 batteries in it, and that shouldn't be an issue. Now, the pricing that we got was with a warranty, where they come out and maintain these things. So we'll have to, I didn't really delve down into that with the salesperson, but we'll see whether that's necessary or not. I mean, for a $4,000 piece of item, it really is going to depend on how much we think we're going to use it, and whether it's more just cost efficient to at one point replace it than it is to constantly repair it. But they do have a maintenance person that actually drives out to the facilities and maintains all these things.
Those batteries are interchangeable as well. They are the same batteries that are on all of our trucks. There's stretchers on all of our trucks.
Your $26,000 stretchers.
Yeah.
A stretcher for an ambulance is $26,000.
They've saved a lot of back injuries.
What's a stair chair cost? Electronic and?
The electronic one is $15,300. The other one is $4,400, but that doesn't include anything else. That's the basic numbers. I think, did we include the invoice in the?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
council has the cost of what the one pro chair is, then pro care that goes with the pro chair, the shipping and the total. And then they also have it broken down with the one expedition, which is the electronic chair, which includes the pro care and the shipping. So the whole package with both of those chairs is $29,938.37, which is what we'd be asking, but we would be running it up to $30,000, which is what the supplemental appropriation request is for.
And that doesn't include what divot would be.
That would be 30,000, and then when and if we receive the divot grant, which divot we would get, it would be 30,000 minus the 35,000.
So you're asking for 2 chairs, 1 electronic, 1 manual.
That quote is actually for 2 regular chairs and 1
So
electronic.
3 total.
Yeah.
No, that's one of each, that's one of each.
1 of each.
30,000?
30,000 is for one of each.
Oh, I'm sorry, 30,000.
One of the pro, one of the expedition.
There's headrest, there's option tank holders, there's a couple add-ons that were requested that are also in that quote.
The things that the pro care that you're talking about, that's the maintenance. And that, again, that might be a cost that we don't want to, it might be something that we look at for the electronic one, but not as much as the regular one.
So basically, we're asking for one of the regular chairs, one of the electronic chairs. We're including the pro care and the shipping in that supplemental appropriation cost because we are determining and evaluating whether that's going to be a cost. But we're asking for one resolution by one supplemental appropriation. If those funds are not expended because it's not necessary, they'll go back into your capital.
You said you're surprised we don't have one already? Have we really looked? Have we looked in the firehouses? Have we checked any storage that might
Oh,
have
believe me,
been?
they would know if they have, yeah.
I mean, an older version, something
No,
that might.
there is, honestly, I don't think there is an older version of these.
Okay.
Yeah, they've, like I said, the fire services does not use them. No, nobody had, like Plymouth Fire Services doesn't have them. It was strictly, unbeknownst to me, it was strictly something that the ambulances all carried.
They're really not required for a fire service.
Right, one gets purchased 8 years ago and it gets stuck somewhere because nobody knows how to use it.
We probably would have asked for it by now.
Yeah, Tim's been around forever,
Okay.
and, you know, I mean, we have people on our volunteer fire services that have been here since what, 1962 or something like that. No, this is honestly, this is all too new to them.
Yeah.
Some people didn't join the fire services to carry people down the steps, right? But when they saw this Marshall Lee Towers scenario, I had at one point almost 50 volunteer firemen in a lobby waiting to take people down the steps. So we had some bad scenarios there. There's people with special needs, there's people with some psychological trouble, and all of that had to be dealt with. We couldn't use a set of steps at one point. We had to switch to another set of steps because they had to talk to somebody to try to help them come down those set of steps. We had family members that showed up who helped because they understood that their family members that are living there would not take well to this whole scenario. Taking people out of their place of comfort, and especially someone that has special needs, taking them out of their place of comfort and telling them they're going to a horse show on a bus.
Why? Yes. Why don't you want 2 of the electric instead of 1 of each?
Because they would be, they serve a specific task, and I think the specific task is more going up than going down. So they had a person that was a large individual that we waited for the stair chair to get freed up till about 10:30 at night, and that person was the last person to get transported because he had to use the stair chair. And that person's means of getting around was an electronic one, who Marshall Lee had to bring down eventually with a small crane because they couldn't get it down the set of steps. They had to take out a window and bring it down with a small crane.
So they have different tasks.
They do.
Yeah, so that's
So
why.
the electric one is primarily, it's used for up and down, but I mean, it's really for up. The other one is it's not electric. It's not gonna go up the steps as easily as the electric one.
The best example is Hamilton Lane. If we had an incident in Hamilton Lane and they had to go up to the top of Hamilton Lane, they would put equipment on that bears 500 pounds and take it up that way if the elevators weren't working. And elevators in any type of fire scenario shut down and go to the bottom floor. So they would be able to use that piece of equipment. They're already in their gear and helmets and everything else. Using that would be some way to assist. And it would also help the ambulance people too. Because that's very, very heavy. Just the monitor for the heart monitors and things like that.
You could put all of our supplies on that, and one person could literally go up the steps with it and get to.
Yeah, I'm just
any
more
level.
curious why you don't want 2 of them.
Yeah,
Instead of 2 of the electric instead of 1.
It's also the weight of the 2. The electric one is a little bit heavier. That would be my.
There are 3 chairs on the invoice, 2 pros and 1 expedition.
One from the invoice, we're only asking for
Oh, okay.
So the prices that are on your agenda item request reflect what we're asking for in supplemental appropriations.
Okay.
No vote tonight. But is anybody concerned with making a supplemental appropriation?
So you would be taking it out of Fund 18 capital, and it would be going strictly to Stryker, which is part of the source fund.
Okay. All right, so you will,
What's the lead time after you order?
The electronic one, I think, was 12 weeks, 12 to 16 weeks. I think we could have one of the regular stair chairs within like 2 weeks.
so Steph, you'll put a resolution together for the supplemental appropriation for the next meeting?
Yes, we have a draft resolution, and so that will, and we were just waiting to see if any revisions to that resolution made. Sounds like we're good, so yes, we will finalize it, add it to your meeting materials for the 21st for consideration.
Will Stryker take a promissory note so that you can get it ordered 2 weeks earlier?
Not until we have your approval.
Okay.
I can't make an adjustment to the budget without your approval. If you'd like to this evening, you have the discretion to do so, but that's up to you.
Is anybody opposed to getting an approval so that we could at least get it started?
No, I
Yeah,
think
there's
let's
no
move on it.
reason.
I'd be happy to vote on it now.
Okay, all right, so it sounds like I am asking for a motion to approve moving forward with the supplemental appropriation approval
make that
process.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
And just for the record, it's resolution 12 of 2025.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob Bill. All right, Mike Peters, it doesn't look like you have anything for us this evening. So we will move into council member and mayor matters. Looks like we've got the mayor's pictures up.
Okay. So the Conshohocken Library had a native pollinator garden planting over the weekend. It was packed, like 30 plus people volunteered. As you can see from the picture, almost every member of the Friends of Conshohocken Parks helped, including our intern. And it was just a really, really fun, interesting event to beautify one of our green spaces. So hopefully it's something we see spread across the borough in the near future. Discover Conshohocken had their Fayette Street sidewalk sale. They're going to continue to do this over the warm months, and it was great. The weather held out, and I actually went to the Collective, which is up those stairs near 2nd Avenue, and checked out what was going on in there with Thomas. And it was great. It's great to see our businesses out and so much traffic moving along Fayette Street. So one of our visions for passing that overlay a few months ago. Walt was actually going to talk about this, but I told him it was probably going to be a long meeting, so I'm happy to do it. So Saturday, May 17th and May 24th is the flag planting at St. Matt's Cemetery and Calvary Cemetery. The big one is the 24th because it's such a huge cemetery, but always looking for volunteers. Usually the Girl Scouts are there, the Boy Scouts are there, a lot of our youth groups will be there. So everyone is welcome to come out. Everyone will get a stack of flags and some quick instruction on what to do. It's a really nice event leading us into Memorial Day weekend. And then finally, I can't believe I'm saying this, but the Arts Festival and Car Show is a month away, literally exactly a month away. We announced our band schedule last week, and we're super excited. We have a stage moving from the library down to the lower end, just like Fun Fest. So we're really excited to make that sort of a more social kind of gathering area. And we hope to see everyone on June 7th, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. for the Arts Festival. And that's it for me.
Great, thank you. Ralph?
Real quick, I just wanted to say hi to my daughter Quinn and Willa because they figured out that their dad streams live on YouTube, and I need to say their names on here, so now they have to go to bed. And that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm good, thank you.
Kathleen? Good. Anita?
Rick and I had a ball Friday night at the Fellowship House, we played bingo. And the fun part was watching all the little kids win. And the gifts were really nice, and I think they all had such a good time, and I can't wait to do it again.
Yes, Lauren did tell me that you told her she had to do it again, so.
It's great. Adrian?
Yes, I want to thank everybody who came out to the EAC's Green Fest, and I especially want to thank Shauna from our administration for helping us pull it all off. It was a great festival. There was rain, and I was very happy that we were able to brave it in order to put on a fun, like family-friendly event. We really appreciated all the great artwork from the elementary school kids, and I definitely know that kids were walking away happy with, you know, the things that they were able to make from like upcycled materials and plants that they were able to learn about some native planting. So thanks for all the vendors and all the volunteers and just anyone who showed up for our annual Green Fest. Thanks.
Thanks to the bumblebee. That was a big hit.
That was
You hear that, Mia?
Alan? All right. And I have nothing this evening other than we hope to see everyone out on Saturday. It's going to be a fun day and a long day, so thank all of your public workers that are out there for donating their time. All right, meeting adjourned. Public comment, sorry. I just went out. No public comment. Anything over there on email or anything? Awesome. Meeting adjourned.